Royal Dutch Shell is a British-Dutch oil and gas company that implements scenario planning to prepare for potential high-risk crises that may impact the company. In 1973, the price of oil increased by 70%, and a trend of recessions and high inflation in the world financial systems meant that the price of oil continued to rise until 1986. The oil shock in 1973 was a scenario that Shell had prepared for, and they remained successful through the duration of the crisis by diversifying and branching out into coal, nuclear power, and metals. As a result, Shell became a leader in profitability. Currently, Shell is struggling to remain a viable energy provider due to the government-backed push for a reduction in fossil fuel usage, combined with the negative impact of recent disasters, such as the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010 and the Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011. Additionally, public opinion has shifted towards opposing deep drilling and limiting carbon emissions, compounding the potential future damage to Shell. Shell needs to use scenario planning as an aid to opportunity framing and strategy formulation to recover the success they attained in the 1970s.
Royal Dutch Shell are faced by both internal and external business and management issues. External issues are beyond their control and are primarily about the movement toward environmental sustainability. Due to environmental disasters such as the breakdown of nuclear power stations in Japan or the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, these events draw massive media attention and change public opinions on the continued use of fossil fuels, putting more pressure on Shell to maintain higher ethical standards on the impacts that Shell's business practices have on the environment, bringing to question the company's corporate social responsibility views. Internal issues range from strategic management, lack of control over future decisions, knowledge management, and leadership management. Strategic management issues are related to the fact that Shell is still focusing its interests toward the use of fossil fuels rather than shifting toward more environmentally sustainable alternatives, such as solar and wind power. This can be attributed to a resistance to change within the company, as annual revenue generated by current sources of non-sustainable fuels have not decreased. They do not see a need to change despite other rival companies' movement towards sustainable energy. There is also an apparent lack of control over future decisions in regard to planning and forecasting, as they only assess current economies using contingency planning, while they should better understand the importance of scenario planning to ensure they will cope with economic change when fossil fuel use begins to slow. Shell still needs to improve their knowledge management to become an industry leader as they were in the 1970s. This can be achieved through improved planning and controlling of internal processes and better understanding of information, better implementation of strategic and change management to better prepare themselves for the future. Leadership management is also an issue within Shell, as the organisation has shown a value for traditional management techniques used in the 1970s, with little to no leadership strategic change. Competitors such as British Petroleum have implemented the use of specific leadership teams to improve individual sectors of operations such as petrol stations or retail products. Shell also have management issues in regard to disclosure of information to the public, such as when Shell cut their estimated oil reserves, causing major concern for investors, and a delayed annual report release in 2017 further promoted the concern among stakeholders. Lewis will now further explain the main organisational issue within Royal Dutch Shell.
As the demand for energy worldwide continues to increase, and as the global social and political climate towards sustainability continues to shift, Royal Dutch Shell face three key issues that, if overcome, has the potential to keep Shell ahead of its competitors in a sector experiencing large-scale change. The three key issues I will discuss are sustainability, strategic planning, and ethical and social responsibility. One of society's and Royal Dutch Shell's greatest challenges is how to provide more energy to an expanding global population whilst working towards reducing carbon emissions to create a more sustainable future. In 2015, world leaders met to form what is known as the Paris Agreement. This landmark global treaty saw countries commit to an action plan to prevent global temperatures rising above 2 degrees Celsius. As deposits of oil, coal, and natural gas become more scarce, the global energy sector faces a number of issues The first being the rising cost of extracting these hydrocarbons, with the need to continually invest in new technology in order to reach deeper deposits. And being the political and social cost of increasing legislative and social pressures around such endeavours. As the world looks to a more sustainable future, governments and government bodies such as the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, face increasing social pressure from constituents to decrease the toll large energy providers have placed on the environment. As the world moves closer to deadlines set by the Paris Agreement, stricter guidelines will be needed. Hydrocarbons such as oil and gas currently make up 80% of Royal Dutch Shell's operations. If the EPA or other global standards were to hinder the operations of Shell to drill for oil or obtain new coal and gas seams, the company would face tremendous losses. This is why strategic planning must form an integral part of their business moving forward. Shell Scenarios is a research division of Royal Dutch Shell that gathers all available resources to imagine as many possible futures in order to steer the company in the right direction. As the global energy sector continues to change, Shell draws on the knowledge and expertise of economists, scientists, financial and managerial strategists, amongst others, to create a range of possible futures in order to explore the most plausible short and long-term changes in the global energy system. The effectiveness of these strategic models has been proven historically, when planner Pierre Wack successfully predicted the impact of a steep rise in oil prices, allowing Shell to thrive in an otherwise difficult energy climate. If handled appropriately, Shell could continue to be a world leader in the energy sector by utilising strategic planning to make confident predictions and adapting to a changing energy sector. As the global perspective on climate change and sustainability continues to shift, businesses in the energy sector face increasing pressure to make steps to reduce emissions, as well as to invest in research and development of renewable sources of energy. If Royal Dutch Shell aims to keep pace with the changing social and political perspective on reducing carbon emissions, they must invest in renewable and carbon neutral energy production. So why are these the three key issues? Well, the current social and political climate continues to make moves towards a carbon neutral energy sector. 80% of Royal Dutch Shell's core revenue will become obsolete as this continues to happen. In order for the company to continue to thrive in the energy sector, transitions must be made to move away from non-renewable sources of energy and towards a greener, more sustainable ones. The key issues facing Shell require complex management solutions. Jack is going to talk us through the management theories that will aid Shell in creating organisational change, leading to a sustainable and more profitable future for the company.
Planning is the first step in the management process, followed by organising, leading and controlling. But it is the process of planning that is the stage for the others. In this case, Shell needs to protect the environment by investing and developing renewable energy. For Shell, energy is non-renewable, and the sooner or later it will become minimal. Renewable energy resources are sustainable and pollution-free and will surely become a main part of the energy supply. In addition, establishing necessary technological reserves can further reduce Shell's reliance on oil and its capacity to reduce energy security risks. To do this, Shell will need to implement production plans, financial plans, marketing plans, and human resource plans. Shell has adopted scenario planning. In fact, the first oil crisis broke out from 1973 to 1974. The Shell Oil Company didn't like other oil companies to adopt the strategy of expanding production capacity. By implementing and planning this strategy, it enabled Shell to avoid heavy losses incurred by the oil crisis. Now I'm going to talk about motivation. What is motivation? It involves the level, direction and persistence of the views expected at work. There are three types of motivation. The first one is the content area motivation, which can help us understand human needs and how people react in different ways and respond to different situations. As in our case, because of the Yom Kippur War and the increase of oil prices and the reduces in the production of the society at whole, the oil has its needs to the human society. Secondly, is the process of motivation, which is the additional insights people's given meaning to the rewards and the respond of them, which pairs the work-related behaviours. Lastly, we have the reinforcement theory of motivation, which focuses on the environment as a major source of rewards and the influence on human behaviour. Goal-setting theory is also related to our case. Textbooks can be highly motivating as they give us direction to people in their work and clarify performance expectations. In our case, Shell the company, in order to survive that time, had adopted diversity by branching out into areas of coal and nuclear power. In relation to the reinforcement theory of motivation, in 2010, the BP Monaco Deepwater Horizon oil well off the coast of Osana blew out and spilled many thousand litres of oil into the Gulf of Mexico each day for months before it could be shut down. It created the greatest environmental disaster in history of the United States. As we know, diving for oil in shallow seas is less severe and less technologically difficult than deepwater drilling. Now I'm going to talk about leadership theory. There are two types of theories that Shell use: leadership theory and House's path goal theory. First, we'll be looking at visionary leadership. Visionary leaders bring a clear sense of future and understanding of how to get there. The 5 principles of visionary leadership are challenge the process and show enthusiasm, help others to set an example and celebrate their achievements. When the oil crisis began in 1973, after the war, Shell was the only major oil company that was prepared for it. Shell's management were able to plan for this and eventually applied this planning to the crisis following the Yom Kippur War, while other oil companies struggled. The second theory is the House's path goal theory. This theory suggests that as an effective leader, this is the one who clarifies through the process to achieve and both test the personal goals. These are aspects of goal setting and people who are involved that can reduce the need for leaders' personal involvement. In effect, they make leadership from the outside unnecessary because leadership is already used into the situation. Possible suggestions for leadership include subordinary characteristics, task characteristics, and organizational characteristics. These characteristics is the ability, experience, and interdependence in the case of the Pierce Wack, who was a planner for Shell, and had calculated the impact of the possible rise in oil price and the likely increase in the world's craving for oil. He and his colleagues were well planned for the oil shake, and he was acting like a leader because he used the leadership process. Now Liam is going to talk about problem solving and objectives.
For the planning and objective setting for Royal Dutch Shell, they are on a good course in this scenario and should continue with their emphasis on effective leadership, planning and motivation. Shell currently displays all their scenario plans on their website for us to analyse and to see how we think we can improve them. That their problems can be reduced, if not eliminated, through their effective leadership of staff, which will include motivating them, and helping plan them for the future to reduce the impact any of these situations do have on the business. For the planning for Royal Dutch Shell, they are primarily an oil or gas company for non-renewable energies. So they should be planning in the future to eliminate, if not reduce, these non-renewable energies, and hopefully carry out their plan to dedicate to new renewable energies. Moving to the more sustainable renewable energies will only benefit them in the long term, as it will increase their brand image, reduce their carbon emissions, and improve their job security for their staff universally. The job security will come from a more long-term sustainable energy resource generation, which will improve the staff's loyalty, commitment, and more importantly, their output in the workplace. If Shell doesn't plan to totally eliminate their non-renewable energy sources, they can reduce it through other means, such as in their distribution or production processes. If Shell are to move their primary product from non-renewable to renewable, it will involve a lot of internal shuffling of staff. So staff will have to keep working happy and be happy to be there in a new and changing workplace. And this will come down to effective leadership and motivation. The effective use of expert, referent, personal powers will be pivotal, as employees will have to be happy and working hard to achieve the organization's new goals. The managers will have to be able to influence staff through the powers mentioned to receive the most commitment and effective output as possible. Allowing employees to have the part in their say in where they are moved to in such a shift will increase their motivation and dedication to their project. Royal Dutch Shell undergoing such a drastic shift will require strong leadership in all sectors, up and down the hierarchy and chain of command, and may require relevant objective setting and more task-oriented leaders, with concern for the people coming second in some areas. Communication will be important both up and down the chain of command, and the leaders making these decisions will have to be flexible, creative, and have plenty of self-confidence. The leadership ability will have an effect on the staff universally, and the planning of situations and the motivation of staff, as strong leaders need to possess these traits and be able to influence everyone around them.
So now in step 6, I will talk about the action plan. Our action plan, in order to improve Shell's position, is divided into two parts. The first one is a short-range action plan. In the short term, the organization should arrange an appointment with qualified employees from different departments, which further discuss various ways to eliminate non-renewable energy and dedicate to natural and renewable energies. Within 2 weeks, initial plans should have been made and all staff members are in an agreement with them. Although, during this process, discrepancies or resistance to change the employee's attitude could be the result. Several applicable theories are remarkable. The Shannon and Weaver model is a communication model and deals with various concepts like the information source, who is the transmitter, or the feedback. Levin's change management model includes the following 3 stages: the unfreeze stage, the change stage, and the refreeze stage. For this short-range action plan, especially the unfreeze stage is important, because the staff has to realize that something is going to change. The McKinsey 7S model includes 7 elements, which helps the company to know what to do. Kotter's theory should help organizations throughout the whole process of change. One of the most important stages included is the developing of the change vision. Team building is not mentioned as an individual theory, because the team's compositions will change during the whole process. All these change management theories cannot assign exactly to one of the tasks, because most of them are used throughout the whole process of change. In the medium term, the plans should be made concrete. This includes the identification of potential generation sites, the cost planning, the calculation of the return on investments, and so on. Besides relevantly skilled staff, in this process, the Chief Financial Officer should be involved. Within 10 weeks, the entity should have specific plans in order to use or to develop renewable energy. Potential barriers could be a problem of time, that the costs are too high, that the investments of the return on investments are not positive, and so on. All these theories mentioned before are applicable for this stage as well. In long term, 2 members of the planning team should present their plan or the plans to the board of directors and other relevant members of the top management. The aim is that they agree with the plans and the company can get ready for the implementation process. All this should be done within 12 weeks. Now let's talk about the long-range plan. In short term, the plans should be implemented. This means that the relevantly skilled staff and external companies such as different suppliers should manage it within 5 years that the percentage of renewable energies used within the entity has been increased. Problems accompanied with this task could be a problem of time, bottlenecks, or employee absence. As we can see, the same theories are applicable, except Kotte's theory, because in our opinion, steps like developing a change vision have to be done before the implementation process starts. Considering Levin's change management model, for this plan, the change and refuel stages are important. The company should deploy any changes and measure and reinforce the new state of things. In the medium term, the company should think about an energy diversification. Within 20 years, the company should use different energy resources from different suppliers. As a result, the percentage of the renewable energies used within the entity should have been increased. Potential barriers to success could be the availability of only a few appropriate suppliers, no agreement with any supplier, or the dependence from a single supplier. Within 50 years, the company should monitor ongoing audit scenarios as well as trying to develop new plans and strategies. That the scenarios are accurate and the renewable energy is maybe completely rebased, all staff members are important. One problem could be that in the following years it is maybe probable that fossil fuels are becoming increasingly interesting again. All theories are applicable except the McKinsey's 7S model. That was our presentation about Shell. We hope you have now a better understanding of Shell's position and you know how the company can improve it.